You know what? I think having an inspired practice is your mentality leading up to it and getting your mind into getting into the right mentality leading up to your practice so that you're available to actually consume the things that are valuable to you and then take those little wins with each skill that you're doing.
This episode is brought to you by West Coast Beach, a year-round beach volleyball club on the west side of Los Angeles in Santa Monica, California. At West Coast Beach, we aim to get 1% better every day, both on and off the court. You can find more info about us at westcoastvbc.com and on Instagram with handle @westcoastvbc. All right, I'm here with the one and only Casey Patterson. Casey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, dude. Stoked to be here. I'm excited. I've been reading, seeing what you guys have been doing and who you've been interviewing. Dude, insane. Like, I would trade spots right now and interview all those legends. It's so rad.
Well, you're a legend in your own right, Casey. Mr. Boom, the 6'6" ninja. You played at BYU. You played pro indoors in Europe and Puerto Rico. And then you transferred all to the beach. You're a 15-time champion on the AVP, including the Manhattan Beach Open in 2016. You were named the best offensive player and team of the year in 2013 with Jake Gibb, a 2-time champ on the FIVB World Tour, an Olympian in 2016 with Jake Gibb. You traveled all over the world as a competitor. You're a husband, a father, an influencer. You're a legend, Casey Patterson. Thanks again, man.
Wow, I wish I was recording my screen, dude. I just need to have that as my 5 a.m. wake up, 4 a.m. wake up, and just have that ramble off. Like, oh, you're right. Okay, let's go.
I love it, man. Let's jump right into it, man. What does living an inspired life mean to you?
Great question. And I think you can take it in so many different ways. And to be honest, I feel like it's like the energy that you portray to other people. I feel like for me, it's like being inspired is when you show up to a tournament and you could go hanging out in the players tent. Instead you kind of go and you mingle and you walk around and you watch your buddies you used to compete against, or you watch you up and coming kid. Like, dude, first guy I ever qualified with, Dennis Roberts, his son plays now. I mean, I'm out there watching him like he's my own kid. Like, for me, it's inspiring. And I love, unfortunately, dude, I spend way too much time on YouTube watching like inspiring motivational videos. But that's just because that's who I am to the core. I feel like I just love being inspired. And so, living a life of like inspiration and trying to inspire, that's like, I feel like that's just what the world I'm always trying to be in and trying to encapsulate as much as possible. It's being a dad, being a husband, trying to be an athlete still and like compete at the highest level, and then try to find what's the next stage in life that I could take what I've learned, but it has to be something I'm like super uncomfortable with that I'm not great at yet. Like, how do I do that? So for me, it's constantly like utilize what you're good at, be inspired, and then transfer it into everything else in life.
I love that, Casey. And, we were talking earlier about choice and how I feel like you just make a choice every day just to be the best version of yourself. Like, is that true? Like, do you just wake up and be like, yep, that's my choice?
Yeah. You know what? It's seriously, it's just kind of like, it's like the DNA. It's just there, ever since I remember just being a young little kid going outside and trying to get my mom to go out and pitch to me so I could play baseball. Like, it's just been like, dude, I gotta go, I gotta improve, I gotta do something, I gotta go, I gotta make it happen. And so I think that's 100% a choice that you make. And it wasn't always the easiest thing, through a lot of times maybe growing up at volleyball, not being the fastest or the strongest or the quickest, but having that as like a foundation and then being able to kind of ramp it up throughout your career or how you grow in whatever industry you're in. For me, that's kind of what, I felt like that's who I am. It's just like, all right, what's the next thing or what's tomorrow? All right, let's go, let's bring it. So that's definitely how I kind of see things when it comes to attacking life.
Yeah. I mean, I think anyone can kind of tell that you're inspired when you're playing. And that's awesome. I love how energetic you are and how much of an entertainer you are. But how about outside of the game? How do you stay inspired when you're away from the game?
Dude, it's funny. Just having children, it's interesting how much they change your life and how you see them make like little incremental like advances in certain things that they love. And you're like, dude, wow, this is insane. Like, all right, I got to get that back. You know what I mean? Because you get to a certain level and it takes more and more to flip that switch on, right? Like, all right, we're in Manhattan, it's day one. Like, well, that's tough. But if you're in the stadium and it's the finals, there's like, oh, that switch is easily flipped because like, oh, this is where I feel the most comfortable. So it's almost like you almost have to like reverse it all back again where, you know, the little things get you excited. And so having my children be that for me and kind of reminders of like, oh, wow, you know, my son just did his first front flip on the trampoline. Like, dude, I remember mine, you know, 25 years ago. Wow. Okay. Like, dude, look how long it took him to figure that out. Or my daughter, and she's figuring out how to ride a bike, like things like that. I think it's easy to stay inspired and constantly trying to grow because you're basically trying to like raise humans in that same way that, you know, you with that experience and knowledge that you had. So for me, it's having kids was a huge step once, you know, I had them helping me kind of get that second wind in a way.
Yeah, no, I love that. And we were talking earlier about like, you know, now you have more time for other things, you know, now that we're in this quarantine, this kind of limbo stage, you know,
Yeah.
and it's kind of almost fun to fill your schedule up with
Yeah.
different things that you couldn't do before, right?
Right? Dude, here's how it feels, to be honest. And at first it was like a little bit of a bummer because all the things that we get to do, go play and train. For one, just the community of volleyball and how much of therapy that is. I didn't realize, dude, going to the beach in that first 30 minutes while we're all warming up, heckling each other and kind of John and I'm like, hey, what are you up to? I got a camp doing this, or I'm over here doing that, or hey, did you hear that, you know, Trevor said this on Instagram? You know, there's like all these funny things always going on. That's like therapeutic for us.
It is, yeah.
And I recognized that as soon as this happened, that was gone. And I was like, okay, now it's like, I feel like I'm a kid on summer vacation again, where I'm like, dude, what am I going to learn? I'm going to make some ninja stars today in the garage. Am I going to go learn how to do a wheelie on my bike? Like, those are all the things I've always wanted to do. Okay, now let's take that into an adult version. It's like, all right, hey, I wanted to have a better relationship with my kids and make sure they're a priority. I want to make sure I can work on those things in the gym that bother me for the last 10 seasons. All right, let's fix that so that when it's time to go again, that's not a problem. Like my back feels better than it ever has because I've been like, well, dude, let's really spend time instead of worrying about always competing or training. Let's work on being a better photographer. Let's work on, hey, video skills, editing, like, dude, whatever I'm interested in. I feel like a little bit of a kid in summer vacation. I get to pick what I get to like focus on for 2.5, 3 months.
Yeah.
Which for me has been rad. It's been really cool.
No, it's a great opportunity like right now. But since you mentioned training, let's talk about practice, you know, because this project is all about the tools and how you implement those tools to help you stay inspired. So thinking back, I want you to answer this in two different ways. One as an athlete and one as a dad and a husband. Because that's a practice too, you know, but what does having an inspired practice mean to you?
You know what? I think having an inspired practice is your mentality leading up to it and getting your mind into the right mentality leading up to your practice so that you're available to actually consume the things that are valuable to you and then take those little wins with each skill that you're doing. If I just show up and I have an expectation of what I think is going to happen, that's the biggest downfall for me because I'm an emotional player.
Right.
And so then it's a kick, you know, it's a Scotty Lane kick a ball into the water. So run down the beach and just start cussing in my hands, you know, versus if I've come with a purpose and a plan, hey, I'm going to do some meditation. Hey, I'm going to show up and I'm going to work on making sure I dial in my jump serve down the middle. And whether I win or lose the drills, if I felt like I've improved at that specific skill, dude, I can walk off the beach and win. And that's what's changed for me the most, becoming more of a veteran player, is I'm able to like still have that emotion, but I have regulators that help me keep it in check so that the progress actually happens versus just frustration for the rest of the day. I mean, dude, how bad it used to ruin my day if I didn't accomplish those things that I was like really into. Or now, if I have those bullet points in check, I've got a program and an idea of what I need to get done for practice. Dude, the days and the things that happen after volleyball is over have definitely helped me a lot because now I can recover from an awful loss to a team that you feel like, dude, expectation wise, I should beat this team if I'm in a tournament. Let's say they win, they have a great practice. Good for them. They did all these things right. But I accomplished my goal, so I'm okay because I know long term I'm going to get those kids back. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the mentality that's changed for me. Where it used to be just full emotion and frustration. And if I wasn't jumping or feeling great or hitting as hard as I could, it was just like a big waste of a day.
Sure.
Where now it's every day is useful and productive.
Love that. Productive. It reminds me of Karch Karai was telling me about productive and unproductive thoughts. And that's a good way to think about it. I just wrote down regulators. Can you just expand on what you mean by that? You mentioned you have regulators.
Yeah, there's certain regulators that for me, having such an emotional dial of a roller coaster of like, either I'm playing as well as I ever have, or it's terrible and I feel like everyone's judging me and they're probably saying crap, and you start feeling that, and even you start making things up, kind of like when you're a kid running down the street at night and you're like, you don't know what's behind you, so you start running and looking at the same time, and there's really nothing there. You're like, oh my gosh, I gotta get home. There's dogs chasing me that don't exist. So I think it's like, look, we're not running from invisible dogs down the street. Those don't exist. So the way that you regulate that is that you have specific like check marks throughout a practice, evaluations, or even how Kevin Wong used to say he had to have a meeting with himself like halfway through practice. Dude, hold on. I said, I need to have a meeting with myself. He'd go grab his pink Karchi hat and throw it on. And then his whole mentality and his whole like an emotional state would change, because it's like, it was a reset. So those regulators are like mini resets throughout the day and whatever we're accomplishing. And so for me, it's like, okay, this didn't go well, but hey, that reset or that regulator, that helped me get in check, where now my mentality, I'm still able to overcome what I felt like just affected me more than it did. And I can stay in a good, positive mental path and keep dialing in what I wanted to do and executing what I need to do.
That's so awesome. And do you use that as a dad and off the court as well?
Oh, dude, that's an all-encompassing mentality. I feel like if I work out in the morning and make that a priority and get my mind right, when I come home, I mean, I make it like yesterday, worked out at 5. Dude, there's nothing to train for right now, to be honest. Like, we have no tournaments in sight.
Right.
And I'm like, I got to train just in case, I got to stay ready. So I train super early in the morning. And then I come home at like 6:30 when the kids wake up, and I'm making breakfast burritos and fresh bacon and eggs, and I'm cooking like ham and hash browns. I'm like, let's go. Versus like today, I didn't, dude. I was struggling. I'm frustrated and irritated at everything. And so it really does, like, that regulator, knowing that is what makes me my best self. Just knowing that is, most of the battle. So now I have that regulator to like wake up, get it done, so that I come back and I'm a dad that kids want to be around, versus just like grumpy guy that's just doing it because he's stuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Quarantine. So that's for sure. It does. It goes through all channels of life.
Love that. Let's talk about games and the inspired game, and what the main difference is between an uninspired game and an inspired game.
Yeah. I think, like I said before, having that, like, not having a specific expectation and being in the moment is truly being inspired.
Right.
When you've got this expectation of perfection, we can all want to be perfect, but if the result isn't there and it derails everything, that inspiration starts to dwindle. You start to lose that fire and that vision of what really is being inspired. Dude, it's being in the moment and finding that, there's so many words for it, the flow state, the zone.
Yeah.
And that's because you're actually in that moment and you've prepared, and you don't have this, unreachable expectation of how you're going to play. You're just playing each skill, each specific point at a time. And so for me, that's how I like to approach it. And I think being inspired for me also is initially when I come into let's say a match example, no matter who it is, my mentality is, this is probably going to be the hardest match I've ever played. Because then what happens, dude, if this team plays amazing until 14 points, dude, I already knew that these guys were going to play the best match of their life. I knew that this was going to be the hardest match for me to win. I'm not at this like, dude, what's happening? Why aren't we playing well? We should be crushing these guys, or why aren't we stopping them? Or you know what I mean? There's no deflection. There's no internal struggle. You just know that it's going to be hard, and you go out and you work hard. And then in the moment you become inspired, and then that's when things start happening in a positive way. So I think that's how I like to live inspired, is like, understand that everything's hard. Go out and just be in the moment and react in the moment. That blocker dives angle, thump it line. If he pulls, let him know about it, but don't expect that to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's, dude, sorry. I'm like this, I go in so many different paths.
No, it's great.
To be honest, like, I've kind of found out that's how I stay inspired. Before, during, after, is just kind of being in that moment and trying to, understand that everything's hard. Family, kids, work, making money when there's no money to be made right now. Like it's always like that. So for me, like, this isn't really that different. This is another beach volleyball season for me. Got to go out and earn every dollar.
Yeah, no, I love that approach. It reminds me of this GoPro video that I found of you, and it's awesome. I'm actually going to leave the link to it. But you talk about when you win, it's not just for you, it's for the entire group, your family, your coach, your teammate. I wanted to ask you to just kind of talk about winning and losing as well, because that's a big part of this whole picture.
Yeah, dude, to be honest, winning never feels as good as it should unless you have a support team around you that you're like, everyone's truly invested. And that's whether that's your best friend, your mom, your kids, your family, your strength coach, your mental psychologist, you know what I mean? Your sports psych, your nutritionist. Like, during those times when you're winning and you have that, dude, that's what makes it the most valuable. And so for me, winning just to win because I go and train by myself and then I have no one to share it with, that's kind of losing in a way. It's just like, I'm not really winning because I don't get to go talk about it. I don't get to share with people. I don't get to talk about 3 months ago when I didn't think I could play anymore. And then we end up winning, you know, like, that's the true win. That's the win within life in general. And so that's something that Jay Gibb taught me from day one, was you have to build the right team around you, because if you have that right team, losing, winning, doesn't matter. Everyone's all together and we're all putting in the work, and we all have stories to tell, whether it was the worst loss ever or the greatest win ever. You've got this like amazing team around you that helps you stay in the moment, and then also maybe flash back to things that help you if things aren't going well. So for me, that's a win-loss mentality, is that if you don't have the right team around you, both of those are less valuable.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Could you expand a little bit on losing? Because losing is a big part of this picture as well. And you had mentioned before that you used to have a hard time internally with losing, and you actually called yourself a terrible loser. And just talk about how that has evolved as you've matured.
Yeah, dude, as you know, because we used to battle back in the day, you put everything you can into this like dream and hope of being a winner and honing your craft and perfecting it and making it something that you can make some money with because you love it so much. And so it's what every entrepreneur that's made, you know, huge moves in their career is like, dude, do what you love. If you're passionate about it, that's where you're going to find the most success. And then you're like, we both, you know, for a good amount of our life, picked something that doesn't always love you back as much as you love it. And there's not always the right amount of money that you feel like you put in the time and the work for. And so losing for me was like, man, I'm putting everything into this. And if I lose, like there's no like, well, at least I made some money. It's like, I didn't make anything. So it's just like everything comes down. It's just, you're just in an elevator that doesn't work anymore and it's going straight down to the bottom. So for me, that was that feeling, like gut-wrenching, awful, terrible feeling where I was just angry, every emotion possible. And it used to take me so long to try to recover from that. And there's so many scenarios I could share. I'm terrible. I hated losing. I hate it. I don't love it now, but I'm saying I just really had a hard time with it.
Well, I'm inspired looking back on your journey and specifically our battle, because one of my highlights was beating you in the Manhattan Open qualifier in 2007 with Greg Garrett. Shout out to Greg Garrett. But here's why I'm inspired, though, because you took that loss and 2 years later you won a freaking AVP championship in Brooklyn with Ty Loomis, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so talk about that bounce back.
Yeah, dude. I actually remember that match really like clearly because I remember it being, a little bit down from the stadium, kind of close to that hill.
Yep.
I remember being like, all right, dude, those were the death matches because, you know, friends and family are watching, but you're so far from stadium. And it was always easier for us to play a little bit closer, right? Because there's more people watching, it's a bigger stage. Dude, we were battling, and I just remember like putting so much into this, and I just come off kind of playing indoor and deciding like, hey, I want to play more beach and kind of make this a career. Pressure from my wife, like, well, you only have like 2 or 3 years to make it, and if you don't, you've got to pick another path. So I'm like thinking of all these things, and you're just chopping away, you're scooping, just like, dude, you guys were on fire, and I was awful. It was that exact thing, an expectation of, okay, I want to have the best game of my life so I can go and qualify. Dude, it was really tough. And I remember walking off for like past the bathroom right there and just walking down the Strand forever. I think I got to Hermosa and then turned around and I left my wife there. I mean, dude, it was awful. But then like flip side, those are the greatest experiences and life lessons for me and memories to like pull from, because it's like, dude, that feeling comes back and you're like, wow, I'm gonna do whatever I can so that never happens again. So dude, thank you. I appreciate that. So part of that win goes to you. I'll send the check, give some percentages. Yeah. It was a while ago. I probably spent it all, but there's probably a couple $100 in there for you.
No, it's so rad because you took that, you won an AVP, then you won multiple AVPs, then you become an Olympian. I mean, you use that as fuel, and I'm not crediting all that to us at that time, but it was just so cool to watch your journey from that moment. You take a quote unquote low moment or something, and you turn it into this career. You know, it's really inspiring.
Yeah, that was dude, it's kind of crazy looking back at all those type of losses in the qualifier to like get in and then losing and being like, well, what's the point? Right. Dude, it's crazy. Like, cause you could easily have given up, or the AVP going bankrupt in 2010 and being like, all right, what do we do now? This is what I've decided to do. It's crazy. Yeah. All those stages, dude, they really set the tone for who you are and what you truly want to do. Yeah, dude. It's crazy.
And fuel.
Yeah. Dude, massive fuel, because it's just, I mean, fuel and a chip on the shoulder. Like, dude, I've got to, like, this is for me. And then for everyone, whoever thought I couldn't do it. And then also everyone who thought I could, you know what I mean? Or who does believe in me. Like, let's feed off that every day and let that fuel the fire. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome, man. Let's talk about mindset. I just can you give us a little glimpse of the Casey Patterson mindset during a game? And because you're such an emotional player and you're such an entertainer, I'm curious what's going through your mind in between plays.
Yeah, dude, a lot of things happen leading up, and then in between each play, a lot of times it's a sense of what's the feeling on the court right now? Who's the down ref? Who's up reffing? It's like little reminders. Okay, Bealey's on the top, Rick's down low, Olmsted's down low. Okay, Rick's gonna give me a hard time. He's gonna try to like call something on me that might not happen just to get in my head a little bit, because we just have like a fun relationship there. B. Lee's not going to do anything because we're best friends and we've never lost in Santa Barbara as a partnership. Who are we playing? Is it Trevor? Do I need to kind of deflect some of his energy towards me, or is it Taylor and Jake and they're just going to silently just attack you and pick you apart? Or, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, who am I playing? What's the vibe? How am I going to utilize all of that to my advantage? What kind of stress do I feel right now? Dude, it's weird. There's way too many thoughts. What kind of stress do I feel right now? How can I bounce that stress and give it to them? Okay, what are some things how can I add some wrinkles maybe to bounce that stress off and start to feel and find that flow and get back to where I can play my game? Or if I'm playing my game, how do I keep it? And what am I going to do? How am I going to help my partner understand that I'm all in for him, the things that I've recognized, what I'm going to do to help him, our mentality going forward for the next point? Dude, it's way too many thoughts. Sometimes it's a crutch, but that's kind of like an in the moment between points thought process for me. Oh, and who's heckling me from where, and how I'm going to make sure that they, once we beat their team, become fans of ours and take it.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because that's actually a skill to be so enthralled in the moment, to have all those thoughts going on, try to freaking win the game, but also be a showman, and I commend you for that, because it does take energy. But I want to ask you about that, because before you had said you want to make people feel what I love doing, and that's a quote from you. And you also said, I want to make everyone enjoy it. Talk about that for a minute.
Dude, that's one of the most important things. When you love something, that's rad. So that's the first thing, is like, you've found something that you absolutely love. Now, Phil shows that through being absolutely dominant, right? Right. Well, I don't have that physical dominant ability. So I've got to, and what it's always kind of been inside me, is being able to be a little bit of a showman and entertain a little bit. And I always love the entertaining part of the game, the long rallies, the guys that love talking to the crowd, Casey Jennings throwing the ball back and forth to the volunteer. You know what I mean? For me, that was always something that I love and appreciated other players doing. So for me, being able to do that, that's something that just, I want to add elements of engagement for these people, because if I'm watching and you get an ace and you turn around and you talk to me, hey, remember Manhattan 2007? I'd be like, what? dude, you know what I mean? Like now you've won me, dude. I'm all in. Like if you don't win, I'm going to be just as bummed as you, and I'm on your side and I'm stoked for you. So for me, it's finding little moments like that all the time where if a guy's heckling me for the opposing team, you know, I'll always go up and, you know, I'll heckle back and forth, but I'll do it in a nice way. And if we win, I'll go like, give them high fives. Like, you guys, you made that so much more fun. Thank you. Like it's a team effort in a way, you know? And so I love being able to interact with the fans, positive, negative, doesn't matter. Like that part for me is like the essence of beach volleyball. So that's where I'm my most comfortable, is in those moments.
And when you're dancing and doing all your moves and hyping up the crowd, I mean, what is that like? How much of the game do you give to that in that moment? Is it like just a 5-second thing and then you snap right back in?
Yeah, that's a quick, you know, 5 to 6 seconds. Once a great play happens, it's find that guy in the crowd. If DJ Roche hits a great tune, it's, oh, dude, this is time to dance, because you're just letting out how you feel. And so, that's those moments in between and those highlights that's just me being able to like be me.
I love it, man. Let's stay on emotion for a second, because like I said, emotions are a big part of this. So I want to know how you manage your emotions in the game and when you're away from the game.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think for most athletes, that's probably the hardest thing to manage, right?
Right.
Our emotions and what we perceive is so much different than maybe what our coach sees from the side, or what the fans see, or what people see on TV. Everyone's version or perspective is so much different. So as an athlete, it's like even the hardest, because we're the most critical in ourselves. So managing that emotion in a high pressure situation is the hardest thing to do. Knowing that you did it wrong, and not just turning yelling, yeah, I know I did this wrong, I should have done this and this, to like everyone. You're like, why is he explaining himself? It's like, because we know mid play, mid swing, oh, this is a wrong choice sometimes, you know? And so managing that is really hard for athletes. But I think owning that owning that you're the hardest critic on yourself, and being able to move on. Okay, now what's the step? How do I manage this so that I can move on? I think one of the first things that helped me was at BYU, I went from being a setter to an opposite. Well, setter to an outside, to a libero to an opposite. So I played like every position. And I was so frustrated when I started attacking them, being an attacker, when guys would block me. It was really hard, because I was all in and wanted every play to be epic. And once I was okay with that happening once in a while, and understanding that it's the long game, then it really just almost dissipates and goes away completely. And that emotion of like not feeling like you're playing how you should, it really goes away. So I think being okay and understanding that there's a long process in these wins and this kind of progression in how you play and learn to win, that's huge. So for me, that was like being okay with specific things happening, and that other teams make great plays. Hey, right. I can't get pissed that I can't get everything. I can appreciate that they made a great play. And that instantly changes my emotion. So that's cool. I'm kind of staying a little bit more calm. And that's like a Todd Rogers thing, right? You see Todd, that's his game, dude. He's like, good swing case. Good tool off the block. That's a great play by him. He's just like, you're okay with it. I'm like, dude, I used to get so frustrated with that.
Right.
But I think that mentality and that lesson, and then applying that into your game, that's helped the most for me.
Okay, that's great. Speaking of Todd Rogers and speaking of you as an Olympian, I want you to talk about the emotional management side of the Olympics, because the Olympics, it's just another tournament, but it's not. It's also the peak of athletic achievement. So talk about your emotional management during that tournament.
Yeah, I think during the Olympics, everything's heightened, like you said. There's a lot more media. There's a lot more fans from home watching. They like want you to win. Your family's there. Way more eyeballs than you've ever had in your entire life. So that emotion, you could say you have kind of a control of that, but to be honest, that's real tough to do, and it's impossible for most people. That emotion during that time, it's crazy, because you're just getting tossed like so many things. Like, I'm so excited to be here. At the same time, I know I should be, performing well. I prepared and put in so much time for this. I earned my way here, so I know I've put in the work. I can trust that it's going to work for me. And managing all of that part is, I don't know how to exactly explain that. That's just, it's a tornado in your mind. But I think how you get grounded, and how I eventually got a hold of it, was the DJs were the same that had been on the world tour for the last 6 years I've been playing there. The announcers were my buddies from Brazil. all the referees I'd known and become friends with and like acquaintances of, all the players. We played these teams so many times before. So then you like start to level down. You're like, oh yeah, this is just another tournament. And you forget about the TV, you forget about the media, you forget about everything, and you just do what you love. And so I think managing that emotion was something that, referencing back to all of that time and the build up getting there, really helped in the moment. Because you're like, oh yeah, this is just another Grand Slam event for me. And then it completely flipped. But the emotion heightened when we were in the tunnel about to walk out in the opening ceremonies, when all the athletes were in this dark tunnel and we've been walking back and forth for 2-3 hours. Everyone's tired. We have blisters. And we get there at the tunnel right before they announce us, and it's all dark, and everyone just starts chanting USA. And you're like, wow, everyone's just like tearing up, and that feeling of everyone coming together. And the last 4 years, everyone had that same similar trajectory of putting everything they had, early mornings, tough times, making money, not making money, like struggling, family. Dude, that was the emotional like pinnacle of my life when it really came to the sporting world. It was like, dude, this is epic. And that really helped kind of level it out. I'm like, oh, we're all here. We've all done the same thing. Let's go. So I think managing that emotion and referencing back to all that hard work and the path that it took to get there and the team that led you there, that really helps you kind of like level it out so that in the moment you're just free as a bird and you're able to react and make the best of each play.
I love it, man. And would you say that you've used those experiences like the Olympics or like the Manhattan Open win or some of these other wins you've had on the world tour, you've used that emotional management into your personal life as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because there's so much expectation within yourself, and then actually getting those wins and then looking back and realizing what it actually took to get there puts you in that immediate moment now where you feel like, dude, this is maybe too hard, or this is a really stressful scenario. When in reality, it's not. You're just creating that out of nowhere. You know, you're putting that on yourself.
Right.
So if you have somewhere to reference from, like those experiences for me is a perfect reference for me to pull in and be like, no, I can handle anything. I just have to figure out a process. It's a new process. Let's figure it out. Let's do it. So for me, that's absolutely something I reference in like everyday life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, dude, for instance, now I'm kind of rambling. You can maybe cut this out.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You're good.
Dude, the way that an athlete for a beach volleyball player, the way that the landscape has changed for us is so much more drastic than when we even got out of college and we're starting to do it until now. It's so different.
Right.
And guys were making such great money. TV was such a big thing. Now that's all changing, right? No one's really watching TV and watching commercials. They're on live feeds, or they're on Amazon, they're on, streaming, YouTube or whatever. And so brands and that whole landscape changed too, and how you get sponsors, right? And then how the prize money changes for the tournaments and how you trap, dude, everything's changed. So having those wins to reference from and learning from those experiences and being adaptive, that's one of the biggest things, is being able to adapt and move on. Because if you can and you keep thinking in the old ways, well, dude, why isn't a company paying me 40 grand to put a tattoo on my arm? Like, dude, listen, that's not valuable for them anymore. This is what's valuable. All right, okay, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go become this for them so that way I can still do what I love doing. So that's, dude, I don't know if I'm where I am on the topic right now, but that for sure is something that has changed within our sport that helps us be more successful.
Yeah, no, that emotional management and that ability to adapt, and really it's about pivoting, right? That's kind of what you're saying, is the ability to pivot from one direction to the other.
Dude, it's funny that you just said that, because I'm actually going to start launching my own podcast called Pivoting.
Oh, there you go.
Dude, with my buddy, because he's an actor and he's had to pivot as well. And so how the landscape's changed, I mean, it's with anyone in any industry, like we all are constantly having to evolve and adapt. So that emotional pivot is massive, because if you've got kind of like cornerstones that you can anchor yourself to, that pivot or that emotional adaptation is easy, because you can always reference back to that. You can always reference back to those things where you were successful. Okay, what did it take? Oh, it was hard. All right, cool. This is hard too. I can get there.
Love it. I'll make sure to link to your podcast right here as well.
Yeah, sweet. I love it.
Well, let's pivot a little bit right now and go back to the game and talk about flow. Can you identify when you are in the game, in the flow?
Yeah, we all know that feeling of the game just slowing down. and you're in control of a lot of what you perceive to be happening and what your body actually reacts and does. And I think that's the flow state is you start to guess a lot less. There's a lot less expectation of what you think is going to happen. And you're actually focused on the right things and reacting in the moment. And I feel like that goes back to the thing that I love talking about, like the stress and bouncing it back and forth, right? It's a game of stress. Now, if I can do things that get me into that flow state or that pocket where now I'm in control and the stress is on you, dude, that's the best state of mind to be in. And that's goes back to what we just talked about, like that emotional, adapting emotionally, that integrated immediately. Hey, if I'm holding and going, and like if I'm holding on defense and I'm not getting anything, okay, don't let that emotion get too high. Adapt, get into that flow state by, hey, let's change up the techniques we worked on and get you back into where you're reading really well. And you're able to kind of get some digs and contribute for your team. So, all those things combined are something that for me is the flow state. And that is how I get into the zone, is that I don't have just one answer. And it's not just, this is how I get there. There's 7 to 8 different things that help me stay in it or find it. And then once I'm there, I use those as well to stay in it. So for me, that flow state is so many different variables, but it all comes down to me is stress. When I'm playing a 12-year-old who loves beach volleyball and I go play a pickup game, I'm going to dig every ball because I'm not stressed. This kid's going to like hammer a ball. He's going to shoot every time. So I'm just chilling and I'm able to go do that. Now you got Phil hitting at you. There's a lot more stress, right? And you try to overthink what's going to happen. So you end up just like mentally exploding before he attacks the ball because you don't have a calm, free mind. You're stressed out and you're overthinking everything. So if you can go find that game that you played as a 12-year-old and apply it to when you're playing Phil and be okay with letting him hit a 2-foot line hammer, but getting the ones that you need to get, that's that flow state where you're okay with him throwing some stress and you're either dodging it, deflecting it, or sending it back so that you can stay calm and you can read the situation better.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have the intention to find that flow state every time you play, or do you just kind of allow it to come?
Yeah, I think the intention is 100% there. I think understanding and accepting that that's somewhere you want to be, that's okay. And I think utilizing all your skills and the different tactics to get you there, that's the process. Sometimes it comes sooner, sometimes it comes later. Sometimes you don't find it at all and you try everything. And those are the games that you learn from. And so like, okay, what other wrinkle do I need to add to help me find that flow state? And I think that's the same thing with life. Hey, if I make sure I work out in the morning, guess what? I'm finding that flow state with my kids a lot sooner than if I didn't. Then I've got to find a different way to get there. Or at work with, helping with companies or brands that I'm working with, like, all right, this didn't work. I can reference some other things and find other wrinkles to help me get to that state.
Yeah. Can you mention just a few specific tools that you would use in that moment to try to find that flow state? I think breathing is probably one of them, that full deep breath. Can you just expand on that a little bit for you?
Yeah. For me, one is communication, talking to my partner. Hey, where are we right now? How do we feel? What do we see? Those things right there is like, okay, let's eliminate preconceived notions of what we think they're thinking as well. Let's eliminate all that confusion and come together. Second, it's like, okay, let's take some deep breaths. Let's calm each other down. That's something that I use a lot in a serve receive or tight pressure situations. Hey, be free. And Jake and I used to talk about that a lot. Hey, let's be free.
Love that.
Let's reset. That was something that he got from Stein. Reset. And so before every, let's say there's a tight match and they finally score a real point on serve receive, we'd always talk to each other, hey, reset. And so it would just be like, boop, okay, flip the switch on and off again. All right, let's start fresh. Let's not let it keep going and let them get multiple points.
I love that because that's like a keyword that just kind of snaps you right back in. Yeah.
Dude, I love that. And I love that he grabbed that from Stein and kept using it. That for me, I was in charge of saying it too. So, I adopted it and ran with it. I'm like, he was probably sick of hearing it, but it really does, dude. It really works. There's a thing that Tyler Hildebrand used to have us do that Karchi did where he'd rub his fingers together so slowly that you could feel the finger, like the indents of your fingerprints on your thumbs. And what it does, it takes your mind into like a sensory feeling. We're like, okay, you can't think of anything else. dude, all those little things, turning
Wow.
around, looking off into the court, stepping off the court, stepping back on. I think having a multiple lineup of these things is really the only answer to successful outcomes and what you want to achieve. It's never just one answer.
I
It's
love
never
it.
just jump high. It's never just work hard. It's work hard and be smart. You know what I mean? And then add multiple things on top of that. So those are all the little things that I think I would do. That I have done. I've kind of also every year I've established a few of my new favorites. Like with Rich Blamborn, and I have this mental cue throughout points on serve receive techniques. And I would go through every year. I'd add 3 different ones, and I'd just run with those. And the next year we'd get 3 new ones, and I'd run with those. It just keeps refreshing that mentality and reaching back into, hey, how do I stay engaged mentally? How do I reset myself in between a big point that I lost? So all those things have helped a ton.
I love it. I just had Rich on recently. He's awesome. And last question about flow. Do you think it's possible to practice it and then bank that feeling for the game? Or do you
I
just
love you to say that, because it's kind of funny. Like me kind of being loud and entertaining and crazy and talking trash mid swing or yelling at Troy or whoever not to pull on me or what are you doing? Like when we're doing defense drills, I always say those things and imagine them every time because it inspires me. Ty Tremblay used to train in Huntington with dude. I love training against and with
Shout out Ty Tremblay.
Dude, Ty Tremblay. He'd be on, let's say he'd get early and get court 1. I'd be already upset that he got court 1. I'd go to court 2. And then we'd be doing defense transition, coach on the ladder, hammering. And I'd just be yelling at like I was playing Ty and talking to him the whole time. Scooping him, you're easy. And then why are you running line, hitting angle? Like I was practicing those things. So then in the match on like a stadium court, dude, that felt normal and natural. So 100%, you practice those things that help you find that comfort and that level of like in the moment zone flow state. 100% I practice those.
That's cool, dude. That's really good to hear because everyone has a different take on that. It is a very personal thing, you know, and that's why I love to ask that question.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Let's talk about sources, Casey.
Yeah.
You kind of already mentioned this a little bit, but expand on this more. Where do you get inspiration from? And before you answer that, I think you get inspiration from everywhere.
Dude, you nailed it. I love it, man. From watching an inspirational Disney movie, I mean, dude, to watching film on YouTube of guys that I used to look up to in high school, like going back, dude, it's weird because watching a John Hyden when he had the huge Billy Goat thing in the Olympics come in and just take over and lead that team when he wasn't really getting a lot of playing time. He comes in, he's hitting an X2 ball and thumping. He's bombing his serve. He's scooping and siding out. And I'm like, who is this guy? He's gnarly. Like, I remember him specifically. And then I'd play him on AVP. I'm like, dude, that's John Hyden. And then we had like one of the gnarliest rivalries for 4 years ever. And I'm like, it was always weird. I'm still playing against this guy. So I would find inspiration through that. Then it was, I'm watching some dude on, a specific, a different sport. Dude, it could even be cornhole and watch this guy hit 4 in a row. And you're like, what? Dude, I'm inspired. Look at that technique and how he was so controlled and his mentality. Maybe not the cargo shorts that he's wearing, but I'd be like, dude, watching Rudy. I love watching Rudy and just being like, dude, that was me in school. That's me in life. Like, let's go. Like I've 100% find it in everything I can do. Any possible scenario. Going to a restaurant, the server's killing it. He's keeping us laughing. He's not interrupting us too much. Like, dude, I'm inspired by this guy. I got to know his name. Dude, it's everywhere. So yeah, you nailed it.
The most inspiring people to me take that approach. They just find inspiration everywhere, even in the uninspiring places. Like other moments in your life that you can think back of that maybe are like negative or dark and that like we talked about the, me beating you, that loss, but like, are there other things that have helped you find inspiration there?
Yeah, I think 100%. Let's say, dude, scenario, I'll just go back to volleyball again because that's our world, is 2010, I'm playing with Kevin Wong, Olympian. He's got me already to like 2 semifinals. We almost beat Todd and Phil in Belmar, New Jersey. Dude, it was gnarly. I'm like, dude, I just got my first real sponsorship, Rockstar. They signed a 3-year deal with me. I'm making, $25K a year for the next 3 years. I'm like, dude, I made it. And that's nothing compared to other guys. But I was so stoked. It was my first one.
Yeah.
And I'm with an Olympian now who asked me to play with him. I'm like, dude, I'm on the path. I'm doing it. And then the tour just goes bankrupt and it's gone. And I'm like, wait, this is all I'm doing now. This is what I've decided to do. Like, I'm a volleyball player. I'm a beach volleyball player now. That's who I am. What do I do? I don't have any way of making money. I don't know where am I going to live? What am I going to do? And I was just newly married. I had a kid. Like, dude, how am I going to provide my family? It was like really scary. And so instead of trying to find a different path, I was just stubborn in a way. I was just too stubborn. And I decided I'm going to keep volleyball as a priority and still make it happen. I would go get jobs. I went back to indoor and got jobs in Puerto Rico. I would go and play overseas. I went and played in Japan on their beach tour for a whole season. I went and got, and they would sponsor me, and I started playing with Brad Keenan on the world tour. And that was my first experience on the world tour and kind of qualifying. And so I just did whatever I could. I was coaching 3 club teams, 2 high school teams, coaching privates. I would wake up at 4, train people as a personal trainer at a gym until like 7. And then I'd go back and then get ready for practice. And then I'd go coach at night. Dude,
wow.
It was gnarly, but I just did whatever I could to make it happen, because I had this like weird internal feeling like, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I just need to like get through this time and get through this point in life where I feel like I've got to go. What do I got to go? Just be a coach and work my way up the ladder. And that's all I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Like, don't get me wrong. I love coaching, and that's one of the coolest things ever. And now that's actually what I want to do. So but I wasn't ready for it back then. You know, I wasn't ready for it then. So that was one of those times where it really took a lot of, grit, hard work, and just like being positive in that moment and staying inspired by all of those things we talked about. Watching those movies, understanding people that are great at their craft and appreciating it, and like following it and watching it. And dude, that was crazy.
That's rad, man. I much respect just for the way that you operate. I told you this before, but like, you inspire me because you choose to be like that at all times. You choose to find inspiration everywhere. That's a choice, and it's also a skill. And would you say that, it took you some time to acquire that skill, or did you just have that right away?
No, I think being inspired by things was always a skill, but finding them in different places that I didn't initially find them became a skill that I had to like develop.
Yeah.
Finding them in ways and in scenarios that normally I wouldn't have paid attention to.
Right.
That definitely was a skill that I acquired.
Yeah.
Just through living life and experiencing other things and appreciating those things, it slowly developed and got better and better, so that you were able to really just appreciate anyone and anything they do and find dude, that's inspiring. Okay, let's add that to something I want to do later on,
Love that, man. I love that appreciation. For me, that's tool number 1, other than health and family, those are right there as well. But like, sure. Appreciation,
Agreed.
And just like this whole project, I just want you to get a quick visual. Like, my goal is to help everyone develop a tool belt, a toolkit, kind of like Batman. You know that tool belt that Batman has? I
love that you say that, because that's how I coach.
Yeah.
Cool. I say a tool belt, and we've got tools to fix every problem.
Yeah, man.
Dude, I love it. That's so rad.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Well, hey, let's jump right into this lightning round. And again, answer all these questions however you want to, but I'll try to fly through them.
Yeah.
How do you define success, and what does being successful mean to you?
I feel like understanding what success is and finding that is evaluating who you have around you, the team that you've put in place, because without them, you don't really have it and you don't know what it is. So for me, that's kind of success is my support team and those who believe in me.
Awesome. How do you consider the idea of failure?
Considering the idea of failure, that is something that I think grasping what it is and what you see it is and the things that you do, understanding that, and situating or putting it to a place where, like, okay, when this happens, that is considered failure. And then immediately realizing it's not, because that's just a learning experience. And that gives you the opportunity to push the envelope and grow as a human. So, and I know a lot of athletes say that, but that's how it is. Failure, it's never like, it's almost an unattainable thing, because it's just, a roadblock to what you want to do or what goal you have that you want to achieve.
I would say not of athletes say that, but a lot of champions say that. Different.
Ooh, okay. Wow, getting deep. I like it.
Yeah.
That's right.
What are the most successful habits that you do on a consistent basis?
Most successful habits are prioritizing the things that I know make me happy and making sure that if I don't feel happy, looking back and seeing, did I follow the steps of those priorities? If I didn't, there's a reason why I feel this way. So understanding those
That's
things
cool.
and understanding who you are and how you work as a human, that's huge. Because once you find those steps and that process, that eliminates all of those possible obstacles in my mind.
I love how you said understanding who you are. Dude, I mean, whoever's listening to this, when this gets released, that's really what this is all about. You know, like I wish I kind of picked up on that earlier as a teenager, as a child, as a emerging athlete trying to figure out my place in this whole thing. It's like understanding who you are is the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Dude, 100%.
Yeah.
Instead of who you want to be or who you think you should be. Who are you right now?
Yeah, or comparing.
Yeah. Stop comparing yourself to that guy. Like, who are you? All right, let's build off that. And then let's go.
Love that, dude. Okay, so the next question. So every guest that comes on, I think of one word to try to best describe them. And I'm going to ask you what you think your word is in a second,
Okay.
but I'm going to tell you the word that I came up with. I came up with two. The first one is entertainer, because I was just thinking like how you entertain. But the word that comes to mind is passion. You know, you've embodied that word for your game, the way you play the game, the way you handle yourself, I'm assuming the way you're a family man. Does that resonate with you?
Dude, 100%. I've been asked that a few times within talking to reporters or media or just like doing youth speaking and talking to them. Dude, passion is 100% like what I love. And like in everything possible, passion is 100% the thing that makes me who I am and helps me be hopefully the like spark plug in every situation. And so for me, that's it, dude. Passion is the word I would use as well.
I nailed it then, huh?
Dude, you nailed it.
That's awesome. That's great. What is the most important lesson that has helped shape who you are today?
I think understanding that if you really have a clear path of what you want and understanding who you are, you can get there. And I think that's something that a lot of people mention, but dude, there's a reason why. It's because it's true. You look back on a lot of these athletes or a lot of successful people, like, dude, they had to really grind and get through a lot of different obstacles and adapt to get to where they are. And I think being able to reference back to that and share those experiences more than the winning experiences, that's how it's done. I think constantly referring back to that is how you stay sharp, and it's how you stay inspired. It's how you stay emotionally, all the things we talked about.
Yep.
That really is how I see it.
Would you say vulnerability is a huge part of that?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to look silly. You've got to be able to embarrass yourself and rebound out of it. You know, there's always that guy or that athlete that does something goofy and then they spin it and make you laugh, or they just accept it. And everyone's like, dude, how really being able to accept that is a big part of it. And that was one of the hardest things for me. But when you can, that helps you look past those moments to success for sure.
That's a great one. Can you share the biggest challenge you've been through on your journey?
Yeah, I think my biggest challenge on my journey is never really having that starting spot in life or on a team. I was never really a starter. And I think long-term, that was the best thing for me. I think all that did was keep me hungry, and it kept me focused on the things that I needed to do. Dude, I was putting on the goofy jump soles. I was running by myself. Dude, all those things that you were just dreaming and passionate about doing, all of those things helped me get to where I was. And so I think never having those opportunities, like being a starter, being in the limelight. I mean, I've been to one national championship and lost, and then BYU won the next year. I mean, like, there's all and that I wasn't there. There's all these things that I just missed what I thought was what should have happened. But all of those things ended up giving me a way greater outcome through that path. So the harder path was 100% the way that it should have happened for me. So I think that's the way that, for me, that was my path.
I love that. As a coach, you mentioned some coaching stuff. What's the biggest challenge you see for your athletes today?
I think the biggest challenge is taking a step back and actually realizing what they need to do to accomplish it, and accepting some new information and failing. Being able to fail 10 to 20 times when everyone's watching or they're around all their peers, so that their outcome long-term is actually successful in what coach is trying to explain. Because right now everyone wants the immediate result. It's the swipe, it's the like, everything's so quick, right? I want to watch TV, I'm going to stream it because I don't want commercials. Like, hey, we get it immediately. And so it's the same thing. Our brain we're basically training it to just want results. So if we're able to accept failure and feel how that feels and how uncomfortable it is, and be able to come out on top with hitting that one that feels right and remembering it, logging it, and then moving on from there and understanding that that's the true way of like growing. That for me is, as a coach, the priority.
Value bombs, man. Value bombs today. I love it. How important is the idea of having impact to you?
Yeah, I think having impact is super important because, for example, as a father, I could tell my kids over and over again, do something. But let's say you come over, we talk about our journey and how you've done all these things and what you're doing now. And then you say something to my kids and they're like, wow, Alex said that. I'm like, dude, come on. That's because of your impact, right? So that's so valuable. So impact in general it's a really, really valuable thing. And especially as a coach, as an athlete, as someone that anyone looks up to, we don't really understand the impact that we have or who's watching. And so you just have to know that you always are impacting people because, like I said, I could say something 10 times, but if you say something and they listen once, your impact is significantly higher to that person. So it's so valuable.
I love how you said that because even if it's not something that we are thinking about, we are always having impact on others.
Yes, dude, I totally agree.
Yeah, that's huge because a lot of people a lot of people aren't focused on their own impact because they're just so focused on their own goals, right? But then like, what we just said, like knowing that you are always having impact, you might as well make it positive, because you're always having it, right?
Exactly, dude, exactly. Bring that passion and energy at all times. We failed. Let's laugh about it. Move on. Let's make sure that we are always aware that people are watching, listening, and that somebody, no matter how old, where they're at in life, they could use one little nugget that you say that you don't even think's a nugget, and they 100% that could happen.
Yeah, cool. Just a few more here, bro. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received, and why?
Yeah, I have to say the best piece of advice that I've ever received was actually through not my dad who didn't tell me this, who just did it by example. He woke up every morning and he worked hard and he made it happen and he provided, a life even when it was maybe as hard as possible for him to do that. Through his example, like that advice to me, without him verbally saying it, was the most valuable thing that I've ever had. My dad leading through example of just working hard, dude, no matter what. I mean, he was in construction going through early 90s and a lot of things terrible happened and there wasn't a lot of work and it was just gnarly and he just made it happen. And so that advice to me, just through like showing me, was the most valuable thing he could have given me versus him just saying, hey man, hard work. Like, hey, this or some like famous quote. It was just him showing me his whole life. And I was like, wow, okay, at least I know what to do when I've got something that I want to accomplish. I know what I need to do. So for me, that's my advice. The greatest piece of advice would be my dad's example.
Love that. Love that. Casey, what is your ultimate why?
My ultimate why is, it's a heavy one. And I looked at that. I've been doing that a lot with these guys that I'm helping in this solar industry. They're sales reps. And so they're basically doing what we do and dude. They're training all day, they're knocking, and they might win a tournament or not. They might get a deal or not. And so they're constantly need to be inspired. My why is inspiration. And I feel like gathering inspiration and just like encompassing it from everything around you is my why. And to share that with everyone is why I feel like I'm here on earth.
Okay, I'm definitely using that as a soundbite. That was amazing.
I love it.
That's awesome, dude. Me and you both, by the way, because I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Looking back on your journey, is there anything you wish you could change and why?
You know, there's a few key things in life that I feel like if I would have changed or been able to learn from a little bit quicker, or been more aware of in the moment, I think could have changed a lot of things. But then in the end, look where I'm at now. There isn't one thing that I would have changed, because those were things that got me to where I was, and they were obstacles that helped me reroute getting to where I always envisioned where I want to be. Now I've got 4 kids, a family, been in the Olympics, you know, won Manhattan Open, been able to coach thousands of kids and now see them with families and as fathers and talk to them about how I've coached. Like, dude, you know, you could look back and, man, I was so sick of coaching. I was coaching 6 hours a day while trying to be a pro and working them. Like, no, that was so valuable, because now I'm getting people connecting with me and kids that I coach when they're 12. And, you know, TJ DeFalco was 12 years old. I coached him, and he used to drive from, he didn't even live in Cal, like he lived like 5 hours away or something. He used to drive into practice. Now the kid was like, you know what I mean? MVP, NCAA Division I All-Star. I mean, the dude was one of the greatest outsides ever. And I was a part of his journey and his story. And I think that's really cool. So I would never change a thing. Like, everything is useful.
Yeah, man. Amen to that. Part of this project, you know, I was inspired to create the pyramid of inspired living for me, because that to me is my peak. That's what I'm trying to achieve on a daily basis, a moment to moment basis. For everyone, that's a little different. Would you recommend people out there, not just athletes, anybody, create some sort of roadmap for themselves, some sort of compass?
Yeah, dude, I feel like that's one of the most valuable things. If we don't understand the direction we want to go in, we feel a little bit how we were that first 2 weeks of the quarantine, of COVID hitting and everyone locked down. We're just kind of spinning in circles, right? And then slowly you can start to just feel that vibe through social media, through interacting with buddies, phone calls, Zoom calls, that everyone started to find that direction again, right? Like for you, you've probably been doing this a lot longer than the quarantine time, but had you not had this, it would have been like, okay, now it's time to go, right? And it's time to establish this, and let's fire away. I feel like having that roadmap is one of the most valuable things you could have, because through that roadmap, you've got certain stages. Let's say you don't hit one, that's fine. You just build another bullet point before that one. And so that roadmap can evolve. But if we've got a direction, we can put all of our effort and all of our energy right towards that.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
For me, I feel like that's a necessity when it comes to a successful mindset. And without that, you're just lost. It's basically a boat in the ocean with no sail. You're just like,
yeah, or a rudder. Like there's no rudder. Yeah,
the mercy of the water. And you're like, dude, I need something to help me go.
And it doesn't have to be a pyramid, right? Like it could be anything. It could be just whatever works for you.
Right. Exactly. It's all different. Exactly. 100% agree.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey, Casey, last question for you, bro. Fulfillment. Talk to me about fulfillment. You know, you just listed off all your achievements that you've done. You know, what does that word mean to you and that feeling?
Well, to be honest, the fulfillment means to me is when you introed this podcast and you kind of talked about me and my life, like that immediately, like that's what hit me. It hit me hard. I was like, oof, about to get that Rudy moment and start crying on the side. Like,
cool.
Dude, it's leaving your legacy. I think fulfillment is knowing that looking back, you've done the things that you've wanted to. You established your roadmap, and you've like either failed or you've won. And either way, you ended up winning because you've learned from all those experiences. So for me, dude, that fulfillment is just looking back on life and hopefully leaving a legacy with someone that, you know, that impacted them. I mean, all the bullet points we've talked about, like that's fulfillment. If you be able to just even nail down one of those things where you feel like you kind of had an experience to reference from, you can fill yourself all day with those feelings, and then that's your legacy.
Casey Patterson, man, you brought it today, dude. I can't thank you enough, man, for sharing this time and sharing just a piece of your mindset and some of the things that have helped you over the years, man. You really brought it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. Always good to connect, and thanks for bringing up the loss in Manhattan. That's good.
I had to. You know, I had to.
So I'm so refocused now. I'm ready. I'm gonna go back and lift again.
I want to give you a chance to just mention any sponsors or your Instagram, Twitter handles again.
Yeah. I'm at Casey Pat at Twitter, Instagram, and those are probably the most relevant ones that I use that kind of show who I am and what I'm doing and who I'm associated with and the team and family I've built myself around. You know, sponsors and brands that have supported me is a list that could go on and on. But that's because I approach every one of those with a long-term family type relationship. And, it's Wilson Rockwell, Oakley, Lululemon, Mizuno. Dude, I've had so many rad people, companies, brands around me that, I'm going to forget 90% of them. So just if you follow me on social, that's who's supporting me at this point, and that's who's helped me get to where I'm at. But for me, those are really valuable because those help me do what I do.
Casey, you're a true class act and an inspiration to not just me, but to other athletes and coaches and people out there. So again, man, thanks for your time today, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, dude, appreciate it. Thanks.
This episode is brought to you by DAF Global. If you're looking to start a podcast or you have a podcast and you're looking for editing services, hit up my guys, Oliver and Garrett at DAF Global. They're awesome. They help me with this podcast and they take care of all kinds of different services like editing and audio enhancement, and they're great to work with. They're also offering a 10% discount to all Within the Game listeners. So hit my guys up at DAF Global on Instagram and also on their website, www.dafglobal.co.uk.